What's up guys, Rob the Awesome here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the megaton of Demoman secondaries that the game has to offer, and deciding which is the best and which is the worst. Let's go! Before I start, there are certain things you should know before watching. These guys don't just focus purely on the stats, we also focus on the psychological portion of the weapon as well, and how it affects both the user of the weapon and the victims against it, so keep that in mind while watching. Another thing worth mentioning is that because this is a Demoman guide, there's going to be conflict between both the normal Demoman and the Demo Knight, with these guys focusing on the all-around, both casual and competitive, and the fact that the shields make up nearly half the secondary weapons. We will keep in mind both styles of play when deciding the best and worst Demoman secondary weapons. We'll be looking at both sides of the same coin, talking about what the weapon is intended for, and mention whether or not the weapon suffices a certain role. Another thing is that if a weapon isn't listed in this video, then the only reason for that is because it is a reskin of another weapon. End of story. Lastly, I advise people to read the pinned comment at the top of the comment section to understand what these guides are about and what my intentions are when making them. It's important to understand the reasoning for why I do these guides and grasp the bigger picture for past, present, and future best and worst videos. Alright, we good? Here we go. Like always, let's start with the Stalk Sticky Bomb Launcher. This baby holds a maximum of 32 sticky bombs inside its drum for maximum demolishing power. The damage ranges between 60 to 144, depending on where the bomb is adjacent to your opponent. You load 8 stickies at a time and can spam an entire row in less than 5 seconds, creating massive damage output in small chunks of time. And for long range attacks, you are able to hold down the button to charge up the sticky and send it flying for massive range potential. The sticky bombs can also stick to walls and ceilings, having a strategic use for defense as well as spamming in any and all situations. Lastly, sticky bombs can be used to boost yourself forward for fast rollouts, being the first one to mid and locking down territory your team can use to capture objectives. The Stalk Sticky Bomb Launcher is a reliable weapon with many different forms of play. You can play aggressively, making use of Ubers and team pushes, play defensively, holding off entire choke points and objectives no matter your position, and even play stealthy with high amounts of mobility and sticky jumping opportunities. The mass amount of strategy and damage potential you can pull with a Sticky Bomb Launcher is crazy, and it will always be ready for anything the game throws at you. Demoman secondaries are a demo's main source of damage, and often a game changer for the majority of the game. When it comes down to it, utility as well as damage output are important when selecting a secondary and should be heavily considered when using them for certain situations. The list will definitely have some oddities that will be harder to place than others, but we can always rely on Stalk to give us every little thing we could possibly need. But for now, we'll just put this weapon right in the middle and go from there. The next weapon listed that doesn't hold back is the Scottish Resistance. This one-of-a-kind sticky bomb launcher gives you a ton of benefits to mess with and a ton of options to boot. The user is given 25% extra firing speed to shoot stickies out quicker. On top of that, you receive 50% max secondary ammo on the wear, turn the extra 24 bombs into 36 for you to use outside the 8 you already have loaded. You can also place 6 additional pipe bombs on the battlefield. Instead of the maximum 8, you can arm 14 sticky bombs out at once for additional defensive placements. These all sound like fantastic upsides, but the list continues. Sticky bombs are detonated via crosshair or directly underneath your feet for timed explosions that make each sticky accounted for and not wasted. And to top it all off, your sticky bombs are able to destroy other sticky bombs instead of push them away. How cool is that? Now for the downsides. Aside from all the fantastic upsides, your bombs take an additional 0.8 seconds to detonate, reducing the option of sticky spamming and taking quite a bit of time to put that damage into effect. It's safe to assume that with a very slow detonation time that your weapon shouldn't be used for spamming out front. These stats make it out to be a fantastic defensive tool to lock down chokeholds and be in full control of area denial. But in the process, you give up a valuable utility of close quarters damage that requires your primary to make up for. Not to mention, with a slower detonation, sticky jumping is going to be a tad bit awkward, and timing can mess up certain rollouts that need faster arm times. Things aren't looking up for our little sticky bomb launcher, but not all is lost. Even though your damage potential is limited and your spamming capabilities are non-existent, the defensive style of play is utilized to the max with strategy outside of just being a damage blasting drunk. With the ability to place 14 sticky bombs bombs anywhere on the map, you can place 4 to 5 bombs on 3 entryways and keep tabs on each of them if an enemy decides to creep on by. The bombs are tinier and not as noticeable as the originals. People will fall for them more often than you think, leading to easy knockouts. You can place them in hotspots, door frames, even objectives. People honestly don't see these coming. It doesn't seem bad when you think about it, but if that's not enough to persuade you, consider this strategy that usually gets the enemy running into your traps. Because you can detonate via crosshair and not detonate them all at once, you can make good use of one simple trick. Place a good 5 to 6 sticky traps along a wall. If an enemy is scared, he might not make his way in. Pop another sticky where the enemy is and detonate that sticky. Psychologically, he'll be thinking all your sticky bombs are destroyed. He'll stupidly walk into the choke and bam! Your stickies are still there to destroy him to pieces. There's a lot to be had with this weapon, even if it does give up a ton of strategic value. It's very situational, but in the right circumstances, this weapon can be pretty decent. However, defense isn't always everything, and giving up a ton of damage potential for this aspect isn't a great trade-off a majority of the time. Because the defensive capabilities are fantastic, but not as fantastic as huge damage output, easier rollouts, and options of short-range combat, this weapon goes below the stock sticky bomb launcher. Don't get me wrong, the Scottish Resistance is a great weapon for defense and it locks down opponents hardcore, but the Stock's utility is far more important, and it's not like you can't lay sticky traps with a sticky bomb launcher anyways. You just get more benefit doing so with the Scottish Resistance, and in this case, damage and utility is far more important. Not into the whole defensive style of Demoman, Manco has you covered with their latest weapon, the Quicky Bomb Launcher. Right off the bat, you are able to destroy enemy sticky bombs that are laying around. A nice little touch that definitely helps a lot compared to just pushing them aside. The arm time is 0.2 seconds faster than stock, making use of sticky spamming potential for massive and aggressive damage up front. Speaking of reducing times, the max charge time is also decreased by 70%, making it a whole lot easier to achieve distance in little to no time at all. And to add to the reduced charge, you can achieve up to 35% extra damage on your loaded sticky bomb based on the overall charge, making the max charge absolutely worth it for maximum damage potential. Wow, this is like a dream come true. There can't be anything that makes these stats look bad, can there? Well, the downsides include a 15% damage penalty, reducing that damage potential immensely and requires you to constantly charge up if you want the standard damage to begin with. And lastly, there is also a 50% clip size penalty on the weapon as well, reducing the 8 bombs loaded into 4 to shoot from at a time. This seems like a wonderful spamming tool. Faster detonation times means faster damage output and easier rollouts. But what about that damage penalty? That seems rather brutal. Well, what if the damage penalty isn't as bad as people think? With the ability to increase your damage by 35% depending on the charge, and it takes 2 seconds to charge up, by holding a charge for a little less than 1 second mellows out the downside completely. It doesn't take any time at all, and for an additional 1 second of charge time, you can exceed upwards of 20% extra sticky bomb damage. That's a decent trade-off, wouldn't you say? But wait, there's still that decreased clip size. Only having 4 in your row sounds pretty awful. Again, what if I told you it's actually not that bad? Psychologically, a decreased clip size helps in maintaining your sticky bombs. You can use that first 4 in your clip to lay a trap, and the other 4 in case the enemy comes walking in. Traps will be even more deadly with the increased damage. You won't need to relentlessly waste ammo on excessive traps and attack measures when your traps require less bombs. The downsides really aren't the worst things in the world, and frankly, the benefits seem rather nice. It doesn't affect the way you play and can be a nice change of pace from the usual sticky launcher gameplay. However, even though the downsides aren't all bad, there are situational counters that make it unbearable. For starters, if an enemy team is rushing in, you'll need to spam the Quicky Bomb Launcher to get the damage out fast. However, since you don't have time to waste, you'll be with a 15% damage penalty a majority of the fight, and with only 4 stickies loaded, you're gonna have a tough time picking anyone off. The stock will at least give you the 8 stickies loaded and the normal amount of damage, preparing you for the worst of situations, no matter how unlikely. Another thing is a flank rush. Sure, you could use your primary to try and take them out, but pipe him can be questionable, and splash from a sticky bomb launcher can punish their double jumps and rocket jump placements a whole lot easier. You need to be fast and think on your feet, and for situations like those, the Quicky Bomb Launcher isn't the best choice. Controlled pushes are one thing, but if your gun isn't ready to take on an enemy push out of the blue, you're gonna be a sitting duck waiting to get picked off. It's all situational awareness after all, but it shows the easiest way to counter this unique looking sticky bomb launcher. Because the Quicky bombs can be used for all styles of Demoman play, but has a major counterability flaw, this weapon goes above the Scottish resistance. It's definitely a force to be reckoned with, but once you understand the counter, it's not really that hard to take down at all. It's definitely up there as a contender against the sticky bomb launcher, but the Stalk's readiness for any and all situations make it the better choice in the long run. Now that we've gotten a hold of all the damage-inducing sticky bomb launchers, let's stray towards a different type of sub-weapon the Demoman has that changes up the way he plays. What better way to kick off the shields than the Charge and Targe? Shields in general give the user an alt-fire ability that allows you to travel at insane speeds, that removes all debuffs and can inflict damage if you crash into your opponent. You do 50 damage per shield bash, an additional 5 damage per head with the Islander up to 5 heads, and you can achieve a critical melee strike immediately after the impact, dealing another 195 damage depending on the weapon. This makes melee-oriented gameplay a huge threat on the battlefield, creating the subclass we all know and love as the Demo Knight. That's what every shield predominantly has to offer, but now let's take a look at what the Charge and Targe generally provides the user with. Besides the normal shield mechanics, the Charge and Targe focuses mainly on keeping you alive, giving the user a plus 50% resistance to both blast and fire damage alike. Any pirate or soldier that dares to try to attack you will have to face the fact that you are the embodiment of a living tank, with huge damage capabilities all in one. Shields seem to be really awesome, but more often than not we forget a crucial downside that each of them have: no sticky bomb launcher. As great as bashing into people and being super fast is, there's no doubt that a sticky bomb launcher's damage output, roll-up potential, and range is far superior to anything that the shield has to offer, despite how cool they are physically and statistically. Don't believe me? There are 3 things one must look at when comparing a shield to a launcher: damage potential, range/lockdown, and lastly, team play or class role. Let's start with the damage potential. Shields have a nice aspect when comboing with a melee weapon. 50 damage outright with an additional 195 damage add-on brings the total damage to 245 damage per charge. This can instantly kill any class that isn't a heavy, and even then, an additional swing will make sure that heavy is put down to rest. The damage output is fantastic with a shield, but doesn't match up to the sticky bomb launcher. Sticky bombs come with 8 stickies already loaded that are easily spammable. Depending on how well you can land your sticks, you can reach damage between 60 to 144 per sticky bomb. With 0.6 seconds between each stick, you could potentially kill any class in less than 2 seconds and have 5 to 6 bombs to spare, with 24 still unloaded. When you think about the potential you have with the sticky bomb launcher, being able to insta-kill with the shield combo seems pretty obsolete. The damage potential clearly goes to the sticky bomb launcher. It's a no-brainer to trade 245 damage outright for over 1000 plus potential damage in the time it takes for a second shield charge to respawn. Now let's focus on the range and the lockdown. The shield's range is limited, and your melee, depending on what it is also limiting as well. You need to be able to crash right into them for the combo to connect, and when you get up close and personal, you have a lot of chances to die to the enemy. Charging is a straight line with very little control. People can just jump out of the way or do massive damage before you even reach them. The range seems really non-existent and counterable at this point. With the sticky bomb launcher, you can charge your bombs to the max to be on one end of the map and still do damage. You're probably not going to be as accurate far away, but the point is you can essentially spam the enemy out at any range. Not to mention, the amount of things you can do with the bombs can be useful for any situation you face. You can lay sticky traps for people to fall for, you can spam sticks to their face for crucial damage, or spam them from far away to stay safe and away from the enemy. Either way, the range definitely goes to the sticky bomb launcher. It's really useful anywhere, whereas the shield is counterable and really situational. Lastly, we have team play and the class's main role. The Demoman is seen as more of a leadership kind of role, doing massive damage and tanking a huge ton of damage with a medic that is usually healing you. With a sticky bomb launcher, you can go aggressive with your team, defensive with your team, and maintain any sort of strategy your team needs you to fulfill. With the shield, you're going outside where the Demoman was meant to be. Since it's easily counterable, you need to find ways to come in from the flank and acquire the kills that way. You'll often find yourself going back and forth, waiting for your charge and waiting for the right opportunities, wasting valuable time your team needs for you to focus on objectives and utilize your damage potential, which, with a shield, you just don't have. Team play and class role definitely goes to the sticky bomb launcher. Do I need to say more? 3 strikes and you're out. And because of these reasons, this weapon goes below the Scottish resistance. Shields are great for the Demo Knight subclass, and it can be super fun to use. But in a more realistic sense, your team isn't going to appreciate you limiting yourself for a melee kill gimmick. What I'm trying to say is that Demo Knight is fun, but Demoman, in terms of playstyle, is far better in almost every aspect. Let's take a full 180 U-turn with the stylish yet daring steering wheel, the Tide Turner. Interested in going fast, have full control and doing it over and over again? Then this buckler is the shield for you. This shield gives the user a 15% resistance to all blast and fire damage, which isn't as much as the charge and charge, but still does enough to protect you from oncoming attacks. As an added bonus, you receive full turning control while charging, giving you good escape and charge attack capabilities everywhere you end up going. If you manage to get a melee kill with the Tide Turner equipped, you'll receive 75% of your overall charge back, achieving back-to-back charges for massive kill combos. This steering wheel is turning in the right direction for the ultimate shield bashing experience. However, the downside is that if you take damage while shield charging, the charge time drastically decreases, and with it, the amount of escape options you have left. Lastly, instead of receiving a full critical melee strike after a shield bash, or near the end of your charge, you'll instead do mini crits, reducing the amount of damage you can apply in high-risk situations. Trading in a third of your charge and charges resistances for turning control and more potential shield charges sounds fantastic! The whole problem with running in a straight line to get countered in the end, and 12-second recharge times can be completely demolished if you play your cards right. However, the loss of resistance can be more fatal than one might think. Let's say you take a pipe to the face for 100 damage. The charge and charge will only make you take half of that, which is 50, giving you the ability to take 4 of those to the face before dying. The Tide Turner will make you take 85 damage from the pipe, helping you survive 2 pipes, but with 5 HP left, which to me basically spells out death. The difference in protection can be a lifesaver, especially when you need to get up close and personal. A 5 HP crush play is pretty much unheard of, and praying that it works out for you is never a good thing. So your survival rating goes bolstering down. But the turning control and the extra charges make up for a lot of the problems that shields have. Those upsides should be more than enough to make up for having less resistances, right? If that was all there was to the weapon, I would definitely agree. However, we are forgetting that the shield has some pretty heavy downsides. Having full control of your charges is nice. Shrimping is fun and rewarding. But even the slightest amount of damage will decrease your charge heavily and leave you in a stun-lock state where you're stuck, awkwardly running at the enemy, still a decent distance away, and soon after completely obliterated. You're still going to have to time your Russians, and nothing changes. You just get the ability to turn left and right. It can definitely make you tougher to hit if you're moving all over the place, but a well-placed shot and you're stuck moving at a snail's pace. Your getaway options are heavily reliant on hoping your enemy is a crappy shot, and relying on that is a very scary thought. But the extra charges, that must be super handy. It would be if you still did full-on critical hit damage with your melee after a charge. The Tide Turner can only do mini crit damage, which is a huge downscale on damage potential. 50 damage with a shield bash, plus the extra 88 damage, only gives you 138 damage per combo. That's great for killing low health classes, but anything with 150 or higher will survive that massive combo, put you in an awkward state, and have you hoping your next hit kills so you get your charge back to retreat. These downsides makes the weapon far too situational, and hoping everything will work out for you is a dream and a half to pull off. Because the downsides counter the upsides for heavy situational usage, and the resistance makes no difference in survivability, this weapon goes below the charge and charge. The weapon is great, and the turn control can definitely dodge attacks and take out unsuspecting targets no problem. However, its situational usage with very limiting resistances and low damage potential make it a no-brainer which of the two shields so far is the better option. The last shield available with massive crushing power is the Splendid Screen. Speed and protection not your thing? Want a shield that can obliterate opponents instead? Then feast your eyes on this war-worn shield. Like the other shields, the Splendid Screen gives the user a 20% resistance to all blast and fire damage, a good amount of protection for all your shield bashing needs. On top of that, you receive a 70% increase in charge impact damage, turning the original 50 damage hit into a whopping 85 damage per hit. This will apply devastating damage with the additional fully charged melee crits to anyone that stands in your way, especially overhealed patients. Lastly, the shield is lightweight with a 50% increase in charge recharge rate, making the 12-second wait time into 8 seconds to constantly keep bashing your enemies over and over again. The first thing I noticed with this weapon is how low the resistances are. If we've learned anything about low resistances, it's that it often means very little. Using the same 100 pipe example I used in the previous segment, you would end up surviving 2 pipes with 15 HP. That's still pretty much knocking at death's door. At least it's something? But we can pretty much agree that the resistance on the splendid screen is as useful as the tide turners. Not really at all. But hey, there are still a ton of amazing upsides that are sure to make up for that, and it appears there are no downsides to counter them. What joy! 70% increase in charge impact damage is a nice touch. 85 plus the 195 critical melee hit afterwards equals a whopping 208 damage instantly. The change in damage here is only changed by 35, but that 35 extra damage gives you access to guaranteed kills on any fully overhealed demo or pyro, and makes it incredibly easier to kill a heavy or fully overhealed soldier dead. On top of the huge damage impact, your shield recharges 4 seconds faster. You'll be able to keep coming back for more kills instantly, continuously piling the kills higher and higher. Man, this is a difficult choice. It's tough to decide which is better, the charge and targe or the splendid screen. The battle of resistance over damage. They both seem like they have their uses, but this is where psychology comes into play. The splendid screen gives you additional bonuses when using your shield for pure damage. You need to dedicate yourself to the demonating ways in order to get the most out of what the shield has to offer. Thinking logically, you don't have complete control of your turns. The chances of utilizing the bash could be a lot harder than it seems, and with less of the resistances, you're gonna get countered pretty hard. More damage and more charges will make you want to go in recklessly to achieve the massive damage. You won't be thinking how vulnerable you are when your head's in the stats. Realistically, 35 extra damage isn't a massive damage increase, and unless you continuously keep using your charge the moment you get it, which is super reckless to begin with, the 4-second advantage passes by really fast and ultimately gets wasted. The charge and targe on the other hand is great for Demo Knight as well as primary weapon playstyles. The extra protection will be more useful in surviving oncoming attackers and pairs nicely with a grenade launcher for normal styles of Demoman. It may not be sticky bomb launcher useful, but you can still do good damage output and keep good range with pipes, all while being heavily protected. You may do 35 less damage, but at least you won't be wanting to continuously keep bashing people and instead stay safe and think reasonably about your next move. And 4 extra seconds on your shield charge isn't the end of the world. You get more time to strategically plan out your next move, and, as mentioned before, if the splendid screen guy doesn't use his charge within the 4 seconds he has advantage, it's like nothing has changed at all. In short, both of these shields are great, but psychologically, some of the downsides can be a hindrance and often not matter in the long run unless heavily used. Because the stats are fantastic for Demo Knighting, but really daunting and ineffective psychologically, this weapon goes above the tide turner. At least the splendid screen doesn't have downsides to counter the sweet upsides like the tide turner has. However, the psychological value of the stats and making good use of them isn't as good as having massive protection and multiple styles of play. And that should be all for the Demoman secondary weapons. At least, I think so. I couldn't possibly be forgetting the sticky jumper. Well, let's see here. There's an additional 200% max secondary ammo on the wearer, giving the user an unbelievable 72 extra bombs to use. There's also no self-inflicted blast damage taken while using this weapon, making jumps easier to accomplish without taking a lick of damage. And, as expected, all amazing upsides come with some form of outrageous downsides. There's a 100% damage penalty, giving you absolutely no damage output whatsoever. There are no random critical hits on the weapon, which don't matter since you don't do any damage anyways. Lastly, the weapon limits the sticky bombs that are out by 6, only having 2 at a time for purposeful jumps. Great. Sometimes I totally forget this weapon exists. I remember the good old days when you could place 8 stickies down at a time and go flying! After that nerf to the stickies, only being able to apply 2 at a time, it pretty much lost its appeal. Though, not all is lost. It definitely has some great mobility options that can work well when paired with a grenade launcher and a melee of your choice. Think of it like a shield, but without any of the shield benefits. In terms of mobility, you can achieve more distance and be more stealthy than crying every time you try to gain some ground. You can get to locations before anyone knows you're there, acquire the free kill, and lock down certain areas as part of the flank. You can guarantee you have full turning control with this not a shield, and get more mobility with it too. Though it does no damage, you can leave that to the primary and melee weapons. You're only losing about 50 potential damage a shield might give you anyway, and for faster rollouts, stealthy flank maneuvers, and lockdown capability, it seems like a pretty good trade to me. You take no damage from the sticky bomb, so you can use it to do all all the Demoman rollout tricks without any of the damaging limitations. Escapes are easy to pull off after getting a kill, and you gain some major distance to get to the nearest health pack like nothing even happened. But wait a minute, I'm giving a training tool so much praise. Shouldn't it be at the bottom? The difference between the rocket jumper and the sticky jumper is that one is a gimmick without a good secondary option of damage, and the other is a helpful movement tool with a good primary option. Though both get rid of the ability to do massive damage with your main damage source, the Demoman still has his grenade launcher to provide massive amounts of damage, whereas the soldier maybe has a shotgun? Not to mention, the primary options for Soldier are all really good rocket launchers, whereas the Demoman has somewhat decent shields that could definitely be challenged. The question now isn't if the sticky jumper is decently useful, but how useful it actually is. Let's go up the list. The tie turner has a lot of downsides that counter the upsides, and even though you have full turning control, getting damage makes you lose your charge right away. 75% charge refill per melee kill is nice, but you can't always guarantee that kill to begin with, and can be tough with a low damage output anyways. The sticky jumper's mobility is fantastic, full turning control, and isn't limiting, and although it has no extra resistances, 15% as we learned isn't really anything at all. We can cross the tie turner off the list. The Splendid Screen is mainly useful for pure demo knighting and charging head first, but has some psychological downsides of frequently wanting to get in on the enemy. 20% resistance still isn't a lot in the long run, so again, having no resistances won't change much at all. And the 4-second advantage is only useful if you use it right away, which is another psychological downside in of itself. We can definitely cross the Splendid Screen off as well. But the Charge and Charge has a massive protection and still retains a good amount of movement with all of the benefits it offers. It pairs nicely for both Demo Knight and Demoman styles of play, while the Sticky Jumper just pairs well with a grenade launcher. You can switch on and off Demo Knighting with the Charge and Charge, stay majorly protected at all times, and get major speed boosts all in one. I think I found where to place the Sticky Jumper. This is going to be rather risky, and I understand a lot of you might disagree, but because the Sticky Jumper grants massive mobility with full turning control, sneaky placements, and utilizes the normal Demoman styles of play nicely, but fails in comparison to massive protection, utilizing both Demoman and Demo Knight styles of play, this weapon goes above the Splendid Screen. Again, this is a really risky placement. It was a really tough call in the long run. I had to ask a lot of people where to put such an oddball of a weapon. But think of it like this. In terms of a sticky bomb launcher, it places far below. But in the realm of shields, it actually stands a chance at being more useful than one might think. And those are the best and worst Demoman secondary weapons. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you want to see more of these types of informational videos, leave a like and subscribe to let me know. Remember to be awesome, stay awesome, and to have an awesome day. I'm Rob the Awesome, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao for now.
Motherfucker, I'm awesome. No, you're not, dude. Don't lie. I'm awesome. I'm driving around in my mom's ride. I'm awesome. A quarter of my life gone by, and I met all my friends online. Motherfucker, I'm awesome. I will run away from a brawl. I'm awesome. There's no voicemail, nobody calls. I'm awesome. I can't afford to buy 8 balls, and I talk to myself on my Facebook wall. You know my pants sag low.